I'm not a fan of Meghan.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. And I wasn't right from the beginning.
What did you make of what she and Harry said
I think
to
poor
you?
Harry is being led around by his nose.
There is a sentence in a new book that has set the whole royal world talking. A sentence that claims Meghan Markle didn't just want to be a duchess. She believed she should one day be queen instead of Kate.
I believe Meghan was hoping for the scandal of the century by pulling an Anne Boleyn. Stealing William, leading to the divorcing of Catherine Middleton, not Aragon. Divorce Harry and then become Princess of Wales, ultimately crowned as queen.
That she looked at the line of succession at her place in it and decided the wrong woman was standing where she ought to be. That's the claim. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you exactly who made it, exactly where he got it. And this is the part almost nobody does. Whether it actually holds up when you test it against one very simple, very stubborn fact. But first, the cameras. Because whatever was going on inside Meghan's head, the cameras were always rolling. And over the years, they caught moment after moment, a walk here, a glance there, a step taken half a second too soon.
Pathetic, not so funny, it's actually tragic. What Harry revealed by that is a complete lack of any self-awareness, of any understanding of reality. He just behaved as the arrogant royal.
That critics seized on as proof of exactly what that book now claims out loud. I'm going to show you all 13, and I'm going to do it honestly, because for every one of these moments, there are two ways to read it. There's the version her critics saw, and there's the innocent version, the one that's just as possible, that the outrage usually skips right past. I'll give you both every time, and let you be the judge. That's a promise. The claim about the crown, who said it, what his evidence actually is, and the one fact that, when you finally look at it plainly, makes the whole she wanted the crown theory a great deal more complicated than the headline. Suggests do not skip ahead because that fact comes near the end, at number 11 and after, and it reframes everything that comes before it.
There is a quote in here, and it says, "To those that told Meghan she was lucky Harry chose her, Meghan retorted, that is a typical gendered archetype and stereotype because he was lucky I chose him."
Let's be precise about this, because precision is the whole point. The book is called Betrayal, Power, Deceit, and the Fight for the Future of the Royal Family. It was written by Tom Bower, a veteran British biographer known for tough, combative, unauthorized books about powerful people. It came out in March 2026, and while promoting it on a podcast called Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, Bower made the claim that lit the fuse. Here are his actual words. He said he had come to the conclusion, and I'm quoting, that Meghan really thought she, rather than Kate, should be the next queen after Charles. He went on that she couldn't understand why, when she was, in her own view, better looking, more intelligent, harder working, and everything. She shouldn't be the queen, and that she hated the idea that she and Harry were relegated so far down the order. Now read that quote again slowly, because every clause is doing work, and I want you to notice what kind of work.
Theme. Well, the theme is, of course, they broke away 5 years ago. The story really now is about their decline, about their desperation to survive, despite having left England and having...
Better looking, more intelligent, harder working. Notice that Bower isn't calling Meghan deluded outright. He's doing something more careful. He's telling you what she supposedly believed about herself and letting you sit with it. And notice the giveaway at the very end, so far down the order. That phrase tells you the alleged resentment wasn't about a job or a role. It was about a ranking, about being below another specific woman. She wasn't measuring herself against a duty in this telling. She was measuring herself against Kate. It's a devastating quote. It's vivid, it's specific, and it went around the world within days. And if you stop there, as most of the videos about this do, you walk away certain that Meghan Markle sat in Kensington Palace, seething about a crown she thought should be hers. But I'm not going to stop there, because a careful person always asks the next question, and the next question is the one that matters most. How does Bower know? And the honest answer, which Bower himself gives if you listen closely...
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think what I show in this book is, in that episode, that she actually sort of fueled his grievances. What happened until he met Meghan, he was quite happy in Britain. He sometimes obviously frustrated about not being able to land a stable relationship with a woman.
Is where this whole story gets complicated. Because he doesn't say, I saw a document. He doesn't say, Meghan told me. He says he came to this conclusion with the help of others on the inside. Others on the inside, unnamed. And when he described a related claim that an establishment figure had warned the Queen that Meghan thought she'd be God once she married in. That too was attributed to an unnamed establishment, figure based in the reporting's own words on unidentified sources, so hold that thought carefully as we go through the 13 moments. The claim about the crown is real. Bauer really said it, on the record, under his own name, but the evidence for it is anonymous. It rests on people he will not name, describing thoughts inside a woman's head that no one but that woman could actually verify. That's not nothing, but it's not proof either. It's one author's conclusion, drawn from sources we can't see, about what someone secretly believed. Keep that in your pocket. Now let's watch the cameras and see whether they show us a woman reaching for a crown or something far more ordinary and human that simply got read the harshest possible way. Number 1, the curtsy. You've probably seen this one because it caused a storm the moment it aired. It came in Harry and Meghan's Netflix documentary, released just months after Queen Elizabeth's death. Meghan was telling the story of meeting the Queen for the first time, and to illustrate it, she stood up and recreated the deep curtsy she'd given. She performed it in an exaggerated, theatrical way, and compared the whole experience to a medieval times dinner and tournament. Harry sat right beside her as she did it, and it blew up instantly. Here's the critics' reading, and it's the harsh one. To them, this was open mockery, a woman making a joke out of one of the monarchy's most solemn gestures of respect, and doing it just months after the Queen had died. They pointed to Harry's face, some saying he looked uncomfortable, as if he knew it wasn't landing. To these viewers, it was disrespect, plain and simple, dressed up as a funny anecdote. But here's the other reading, the one the outrage rushed past. Meghan was, by her own framing, telling a story about how bewildering royal life was for an ordinary American woman. She'd grown up in California. Curtsying to a monarch is not a thing that exists in her world. The closest reference she had was a themed dinner show. Read that way, the exaggeration wasn't contempt for the Queen. It was self-deprecation, a woman laughing at how out of her depth she'd felt, how absurd the whole thing seemed to someone raised 5,000 miles from any palace. Plenty of people found it relatable rather than offensive. So which was it? Mockery of a tradition or a nervous newcomer laughing at her own confusion? The camera caught the curtsy. It cannot tell you what was in her heart when she performed it. And notice neither of these readings has anything to do with wanting a crown. Whatever this moment was, it was about a woman who felt like an outsider, not one plotting to rule. Hold that, because it's going to matter. Number 2, the royal train. During one of their first engagements together, the Queen did something genuinely warm. She invited Meghan to travel with her on the royal train, an overnight trip. A real gesture of inclusion from a monarch who did not have to extend it. By all accounts, it was a sign of favor, a welcome. And then, when the engagement ended, the cameras caught Meghan appearing to step toward the vehicle ahead of the Queen, entering first. To an outsider, that sounds like nothing at all. But royal protocol turns tiny moments into large ones. Traditionally, the monarch goes first, always. So Meghan appearing to move ahead of the Queen caught the eye immediately, and critics were quick to call it disrespectful, a sign she didn't understand or didn't care about her place in the pecking order. Look at it more generously, though, and a different picture appears. This was one of Meghan's earliest royal outings. She was still learning an impossibly intricate set of unwritten rules, rules that most people spend a lifetime absorbing, and that she was expected to master in months. Was it a deliberate snub, or was it simple confusion? A new person genuinely unsure of where she was supposed to stand and when she was supposed to move. Only Meghan could tell you what was in her head in that second. And again, notice what this moment is not. A woman uncertain about protocol on an early outing is the opposite of a woman who has mastered the hierarchy well enough to plot her way to the top of it. If anything, this beat cuts against the crown theory, not for it. But it got read as arrogance, because once you've decided someone is arrogant, every stumble looks like a strut. Number 3, the wedding dress. The Queen personally funded a significant part of Harry and Meghan's wedding. It was an enormous royal occasion, and the institution was fully behind the couple. But according to an account attributed to Elizabeth Anson, a close cousin of the Queen, and passed to the biographer Sally Bedell Smith, Meghan did not show the Queen her wedding dress beforehand, despite that being described as a long-standing royal courtesy, and the same account claimed the Queen was saddened and anxious in the run-up to the wedding. If you want to be harsh, you look at this and see a woman who, with all that royal support behind her, couldn't manage even a basic traditional courtesy. To critics, it was classic disregard, but be fair about what this actually is. It's a second-hand account, a story told by a cousin, relayed to a biographer, about a private matter no camera ever captured. It may be entirely true. It may also be a misunderstanding, or a tradition Meghan simply didn't know existed, or a decision Harry was part of too. We're several steps removed from anything anyone can verify. And a bride keeping her dress a surprise, even from a queen, is, in the world outside palace walls, one of the most ordinary instincts there is. Once more, nothing here is about a throne. It's about whether a newcomer knew or followed a custom. The harshest reading turns an unshone dress into evidence of contempt. The gentler one turns it into exactly what it looks like from the outside. A bride who wanted her dress to be a surprise. Number 4, walking ahead. This is a pattern the cameras caught more than once, at more than one event, Meghan appearing to walk ahead of, or level with, senior royals when protocol placed her. Behind them, at Princess Eugenie's wedding, footage showed Harry and Meghan remaining close to the Queen, rather than moving down the line, with some viewers claiming the Queen had to signal to them more than once, before they shifted position. The headlines the next morning called this a woman who kept placing herself where she didn't belong, forcing the monarch to correct her, over and over like a child. But here's the honest counterweight, and it's important. Others have directly disputed those interpretations. Footage alone, no audio, no context, cannot establish what was actually said, or whether anyone was ignoring anything at all. People standing in a crowd at a wedding shuffle and pause and misjudge where to go constantly, freeze any large family gathering on film, and you can make almost anyone look like they're in the wrong spot. The Queen had to tell them twice story is an interpretation of silent footage, not a fact. And I'll say it again, because it's the thread of this whole video. A woman unsure where to stand at a wedding is not a woman executing a plan to become queen. These early stumbles, whatever they were, look far more like the fumbling of a newcomer than the strategy of a schemer. But they got cataloged as ambition, because the story had already been decided. Number 5, the Christmas break. Queen Elizabeth cherished Christmas at Sandringham, where the royal family traditionally gathered. But in 2019, Harry and Meghan broke from that tradition and spent the holiday privately in Canada with baby Archie. Now, here's a fact. The critics' version tends to bury. The palace publicly said the couple's decision had the Queen's support. That's on the record. So there is no solid basis for claiming Meghan deliberately set out to hurt the Queen by staying away. Still, critics saw it differently. To them, skipping the Queen's most cherished family gathering at such a tense moment sent a message of rebellion, personal freedom chosen over royal tradition. But let's strip away the protocol for a second. For millions of ordinary families, Christmas is simply time spent where you choose, with a new baby, away from a demanding institution. A young couple with an infant wanting one quiet holiday of their own is not a scandal in any other family on earth. The palace itself said it was fine. And yet it got folded into the story of a difficult, disrespectful Meghan, because by then, that was the only story people were reading her through. Notice the pattern building across these first 5. Every single moment has an innocent explanation, at least as strong as the accusing one, and not one of them so far has anything to do with a crown. Keep watching, because the book's biggest claim is coming, and I want you to see how it sits against everything the cameras actually show. Number 6, the Megxit announcement. Now, I owe you a small piece of honesty here because the next few moments are a little different from the ones before. The cameras didn't catch a stumble at number 6. There was no walk ahead, no awkward glance, no protocol slip on film. What the cameras caught this time was the global fallout of a single headline, and the fallout is the story. Because when Harry and Meghan publicly announced their decision to step back as senior royals, the palace had reportedly not finished its discussions with them. The announcement went public before the family had settled anything, turning a delicate internal matter into a worldwide spectacle overnight. For a monarch who prized discretion and duty above almost everything, this was, by every account, deeply upsetting. Royal sources described the Queen as disappointed by how it was handled, with senior family members caught off guard. And here the critics have a real point. One I won't wave away. The timing and method of that announcement genuinely did blindside the palace. That's not just interpretation, it's fairly well established. Going public before the family had agreed anything was, at the very least, a serious breach of the way this institution expects things to be done. But even here, the fair reading matters. The couple has always maintained that leaks, and a hostile press forced their hand, that they announced when they did, because the story was about to break anyway. Whether you buy that or not, the honest point is this. A chaotic, badly managed exit is evidence of a relationship that had broken down. It is not in itself evidence that the woman leaving secretly believed she should be queen. If anything, wanting a crown and walking away from the institution entirely are two ideas that sit very awkwardly together. Hold that contradiction. We're coming back to it. Number 7, the royal branding. Number 7 is another one where there's no candid footage to point to. This was a battle fought on paper, in statements and websites, not on camera. But it belongs on the list, because it became one of the most quoted flashpoints of the whole saga. After stepping back, Harry and Meghan initially planned to keep using their Sussex royal branding. The Queen reportedly made clear that once they were no longer working royals, using the word royal commercially wasn't going to fly. The couple eventually agreed to drop it, but their statement caused a storm of its own. because it included a line noting that there was no jurisdiction by the monarchy or the cabinet office over the use of the word royal overseas. If you're inclined to read it darkly, that line looks like a parting shot, a public little jab at the Queen's authority, pointing out that she couldn't actually stop them abroad. Disrespectful, critics said, after everything. But read it flatly, and it's arguably just a lawyer's statement of fact. It's the kind of dry, technically true line that legal teams insert into statements all the time. Was it a deliberate dig, or simply an accurate note about the limits of a rule, worded coldly by advisors? Neither the page nor any camera can tell you the intent. And notice, once again, a dispute over commercial branding is a dispute about money and independence. It is not a woman reaching for a throne. It's the opposite direction entirely. Someone building a life outside the institution. Number 8, the Sandringham Summit. And here's the last of the off-camera moments before we return to the footage, because this one happened behind closed doors, and what the cameras caught was only the couple's absence from them. The Queen convened an extraordinary family meeting, not just as monarch, but as the head of a family in crisis, to work out the terms of Megxit. Charles, William, and Harry were all there. Meghan was not attending at most by phone from Canada, and by some accounts not participating at all. To her critics, the message was damning. The Queen called a historic summit to decide Harry and Meghan's entire future, and Meghan couldn't be bothered to be in the room. Proof, they said, that she'd already decided and didn't care what the family thought. But here's the fair version. Meghan had a newborn. She was thousands of miles away. And there's a genuine argument, one the couple would make, that a departing member deliberately stepping back to let Harry and his blood family hash out a family matter was the appropriate thing to do. Not a snub. Was her absence contempt? Or was it restraint, staying out of a conversation between a father, a grandmother, and their own? You can read it either way. What you cannot honestly do is read it as ambition for the crown. A woman clawing toward the throne would have fought to be in that room. This is a woman who wasn't there at all. Number 9, the anniversary timing. Back to the cameras now, because this one was captured on film, and the picture itself became the controversy. Around the second anniversary of the Queen's death, in 2024, the royal family was quietly remembering her. And in that same window, Meghan appeared at an event connected to Oprah's book club, photographed smiling, socializing, making headlines. The critics pounced on the timing. While the royals mourned, Meghan was out grabbing attention, with no public acknowledgement of the anniversary, tone-deaf at best, deliberate at worst. But be honest about the size of this one. A single photograph of a person smiling at a book event, near an anniversary, does not prove that person felt no private grief or reflection. People don't owe the public a performance of mourning on a schedule. Maybe the timing was careless. Maybe it was coincidence. Book events are booked months ahead. Maybe she marked the day privately, as most people mark the losses that matter to them, away from cameras. The optics were awkward. The intent is invisible. And a woman living her own life in California is, again, the picture of someone who left the crown behind, not someone still secretly hungering for it. Number 10, the precedence moments. Now, back to the footage the cameras caught most often of all, the small, recurring moments of precedence. Who stood where? Who moved when? Who walked behind whom? And there were reports that Harry complained to William's staff that Meghan didn't like walking behind Kate, and that Harry disliked walking behind William, the future king. This is the beat that feeds most directly into Bauer's book, and the critics' case is that these weren't random slips at all. That they revealed a couple, and especially Meghan, who genuinely resented their position in the order, and chafed against having to defer. And here I have to be straight with you, because this is the moment where the innocent reading gets harder to hold. If it's true that they complained about walking order, that does suggest a real discomfort with rank. I won't wave that away. But even taking it at face value, disliking the rigid, ancient, deeply hierarchical business of who walks behind whom is not the same as believing you should be queen. Plenty of people find royal precedents stifling and strange, without harboring any designs on the throne. Discomfort with a pecking order is one thing. Plotting to reach the top of it is another. The critics collapse those two into one. They shouldn't. And notice, every source for the resented walking behind Kate claim is, once again, second-hand reports of what Harry supposedly said to staff. We are, as ever, a step or two removed from anything verifiable. Which brings us at last to the heart of it. Number 11. This is the one I told you not to skip, because this is where the book's biggest claim meets the one fact that tests it. Number 11. The Crown claim. Tested. Here it is. The center of the whole story. The claim that Meghan believed she, not Kate, should be the next queen. We've already established what Bauer said, and where he got it, from unnamed insiders, others on the inside, an establishment figure he won't identify. So the claim is real, but the sourcing is anonymous. That alone should make a careful person cautious, but there's something much more powerful than caution available here. Because this is one claim you don't have to take on faith or reject on faith. You can test it, against a fact so simple and so stubborn that it doesn't care what any anonymous source believed. Here is the fact. The line of succession is not a competition you can win by being better. It is not a popularity contest. It is not a merit ranking. It is not decided by who is better looking, more intelligent, or harder working. The exact three things Bowers quote lists. It is decided by one thing and one thing only, birth order, who was born first. And by that measure, the idea of Meghan ever being queen was never remotely on the table. And here's the part that matters. It was obviously off the table, to anyone from the very beginning. Let me walk you through the arithmetic, because it's decisive. By the time Meghan even met Harry, William and Kate already had 2 children, George and Charlotte. Harry had already been pushed down the order by his own niece and nephew, and by the time Harry and Meghan married, Prince Louis had been born too. So on her wedding day, Meghan was marrying a man who stood behind his older brother, and behind that brother's 3 children. The chances of Harry and Meghan ever becoming king and queen were, as one mainstream outlet put it plainly, slim to none, and everyone knows how the line of succession works, which is exactly why. That same outlet called Bowers' claim probably a little exaggerated. Sit with what that does to the theory. For Meghan to genuinely believe she should be the next queen after Charles, she would have had to believe she could leapfrog William and George and Charlotte and Louis, 4 people, including 3 small children, all ahead of her husband by the unbreakable law of birth order. That's not ambition. That would be a break with reality so total that it strains belief. So which is more likely? That a smart, calculating woman, and even her critics call her calculating, somehow didn't understand the single most basic rule of the institution she'd married into, the rule every British schoolchild knows, or that an unnamed source, and a biographer who has built a career on combative accounts, took Meghan's genuine frustration with royal life and interpreted it as a delusion of grandeur, reading, ambition where there was really only unhappiness? I'm not telling you Meghan was happy in the royal family. Clearly she wasn't. I'm not telling you she never resented her place or never chafed at the hierarchy. Some of these 13 moments suggest she did. What I'm telling you is that she was frustrated and unhappy with her position, and she believed she should be queen instead of Kate, are 2 completely different claims. The first is well supported. The second requires her to have not understood arithmetic that a child understands. And Bowers' own evidence for that second, far bigger claim is people he will not name. That's the test. And the crown claim, when you actually apply it, does not survive intact. Number 12, what Harry and Meghan actually said. Now, fairness runs in every direction, including toward the accused. Because Harry and Meghan did not stay silent about Bowers' book, and it's only right that you hear their answer, in their own words. Their spokesperson responded directly. Bowers' commentary, they said, has long crossed the line from criticism into fixation. They accused him of having made a career out of constructing ever more elaborate theories about people he does not know and has never met. And they finished with a line as sharp as anything in the book. Those interested in facts, they said, will look elsewhere. Those seeking deranged conspiracy and melodrama know exactly where to find him now. You don't have to take their word for it any more than you have to take Bowers. They have every incentive to reject the book, just as he has every incentive to sell it. But their response matters for one specific reason. It means this is not a settled, uncontested account. It is a disputed claim. On one side, a biographer with anonymous sources. On the other, the couple themselves, calling it fixation and conspiracy. An honest telling has to hold both and let you weigh them. And I'd add one more thing to weigh. Notice how the critic's strongest material keeps arriving from the same 2 places, unnamed insiders and interpretations of silent footage. Across all 13 moments in the book at the center of them, the single most damning claims are never the ones you can check. The verifiable moments, the curtsy, the Christmas break, the branding, turn out to have innocent explanations sitting right beside the guilty ones. It's only when we get to the unverifiable claims, what she secretly believed, what an unnamed figure told the Queen, that the story becomes unambiguously damning. That should tell you something. The certainty lives precisely where the evidence can't be checked. Number 13. The Oprah interview, and finally the moment critics believe took everything to a different stage, and this one the whole world watched live. In March 2021, while Prince Philip was seriously ill, Harry and Meghan's interview with Oprah aired around the globe. The couple made explosive claims about their time inside the family, including allegations about conversations regarding Archie's skin color and about Meghan's mental health. To critics, the verdict was simple. Taking the family's most private grievances onto global TV at such a fragile moment was the ultimate breach of the Queen's lifelong preference for handling things behind palace doors. But here's a detail the harsh version almost always leaves out. In that very interview, Meghan drew a clear distinction. She said of the Queen specifically that she had always been wonderful to her. She separated the woman from the institution, praising Elizabeth even as she criticized the machine around her. Now hold that against the crown claim one final time. Because a woman who believed she should be queen instead of Kate, a woman consumed by resentment of the monarch's family and her own place below them, is not the obvious author of the line, "The Queen has always been wonderful to me." The Oprah interview was many things, and you can judge its wisdom for yourself. But the person who sat on that sofa went out of her way to protect the Queen personally, even at her angriest. That is not the behavior the book's theory would predict. The Queen, for her part, answered with characteristic restraint, a statement noting the whole family was saddened to learn how challenging the years had been for Harry and Meghan, and adding the now famous line that some recollections may vary. Some recollections may vary. It's worth remembering that phrase, because it applies to this entire video, to every one of these 13 moments. And most of all, to a book built on sources no one is allowed to name. So let's put it all together, because now you can see the whole shape of it. 13 moments. 13 times something was caught, on camera, or in the fallout of a headline, or behind a closed door. And 13 times there were two ways to read it. The harsh way and the human way, sitting, side by side, both possible. A curtsy that was either mockery or nerves, a Christmas away that was either rebellion or a young family wanting peace with the Queen's own blessing. A woman walking half a step out of place who was either arrogant or simply lost. Over and over, the innocent reading was at least as strong as the guilty one, and over, the guilty one is the only one that got repeated. And at the center of it all, the biggest claim of them all, that she believed the crown should have been hers. A claim made by one author on the record, but built entirely on sources he will not name. A claim the couple themselves call fixation and conspiracy. And a claim that collapses against one stubborn, childishly simple fact. You cannot become queen by being better. You can only become queen by birth order. And Meghan married a man standing behind his brother and 3 small children. The throne was never on the table. It never could have been. Everyone knew it, which is exactly why the theory that she didn't know it strained so hard to stand up. Here's what I think the real story is, for whatever it's worth. Not that Meghan schemed for a crown she could never have, but that she was, by many accounts, unhappy, frustrated, out of place, chafing against an ancient hierarchy she'd married into and never fully understood. That's a real story. It's a human one, and it's a sad one. But somewhere along the way, that ordinary, believable unhappiness got upgraded by a biographer, by unnamed insiders, by 100 videos hungry for a villain, into something far more dramatic and far less likely, a delusion of grandeur, a woman who thought she should be queen. The difference between those two stories is the difference between a frustrated newcomer and a scheming usurper, and the only bridge between them is a set of sources nobody is allowed to check. So the next time you see the headline, "Meghan believed the crown was hers," I hope you'll remember the arithmetic. 4 people ahead of Harry, 3 of them children, a rule every schoolchild knows, and a claim that needs you to believe she was the one person in Britain who somehow didn't. The cameras caught a great many things over the years. A crown that was hers for the taking was never one of them, because it was never there to take. That's the honest story. And it was always the more interesting one.